a great time to have him on. Maybe we'd be asking draft questions if it weren't for the accomplishments of this season, but it's Brad Stevens, president of basketball operations for the Celtics. Congrats, and thanks for doing this. How are you?
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much.
What's it like? What's it like to win a title?
Well, I think, it's funny. I've wondered that because I've been asked a lot over the last 15 years, how different would life have been if that shot versus Duke would have gone down, or, if we would have found a way to figure out how to stop those three guards from Connecticut. And I just think, it's as vanilla as this answer is going to sound, Ryan, it's not much different. Yeah, I went home, walked the dog, did laundry. We did have a parade, which was nice. But everything else is, and I think there's that actually makes you feel good, right? Because it's like, okay, all of the journey, all of the things you do with team, all of the people that haven't had a chance to experience this, obviously it is special to be a part of being the last team standing and winning, but it doesn't change who you are, and it doesn't change who, your guys are. And I said after, a couple days after, like, I don't think any more of Jalen or Jayson than I did 2 weeks ago. I just think they're special, and it's just kind of the way we are, I guess, that it's championship or bust in our society. And it's nice for those guys to kind of, if that's something to check off, that's something to check off. But at the same time, I think it just validates that being a part of a team is the most special part of it. The parade was pretty sweet, though. I will say this: the parade was maybe the coolest thing I've ever been a part of.
I was listening to Wick talk at the parade, and for a little background, and you probably know most of this, but like when I had moved back to Boston professionally, it was at the exact same time Wick and his group bought the Celtics, and it was Patriots, Red Sox nonstop on our radio station. And Wick came on, and he was smart about it. He was strategic about it, but it was also him expressing, like, we are Celtics fans. Okay, we're not some hedge fund group that just bought a team that was available here. We grew up with this. We are Celtics fans, and you'd think the 2008 title would just be the one that could never be surpassed. It's Celtics Lakers. It's the first one. But knowing that it took this long for the next one, I almost felt like there was an appreciation that he had because he knew what it would feel like, and they got there again. That you collectively all got there again. Did you pick up on any of that, knowing that you weren't around for the first one?
Yeah, I mean, I think people just understand how hard it is to be the last team standing. I mean, there's 30 teams in this league, and they're excellent. The players are great. The coaches are great. Front offices are filled with amazing people. Obviously, all kinds of resources from all the different ownership groups. So I just think how hard it is. And so to get back and be the last team standing again is something special. I think one of the things that's been fun for me personally, and when I first came here in 2013 was right after we traded Garnett and Pierce and Jason Terry and that big deal, and we weren't very good for a year, but then we got progressively better, and one of our goals, and Danny and I and the owners all talked about it, was how can we sustainably be in the mix? How can we put ourselves and give ourselves as many cracks at it? And one of the reasons why you want to do that is because you want to have a chance to be the last team standing, but also the other reason why you do it is because you want to be damn good. It's no fun to go through the process of rebuilding or building, and how can you possibly do that? And I think the fun part about winning it this year is we have been in the mix, and it's proof that you can be in the mix and not, and still and do so and get it done. And it doesn't take away from some of those other runs, but it certainly re-energizes everybody, because it is how hard this mountain is to climb.
Did you ever? I like how you told the story about Butler. Like, you're so close, and how different do you think things would be? But
yeah, I'm not sure my life would be much different, Ryan. I'm pretty damn lucky as it is.
I think the reward is later on, and knowing that you're not going, yeah, I had a good run, but never got it done. Like now that moment will never exist for you.
Well, it's
And
funny. Yeah, you say that, and it's funny because when you go on runs like that, hey, like if we played Duke 10 times, we may beat them a couple, like in that 2010 team. If we had a coach who wasn't a 33-year-old idiot, we probably would have beat them, right? But the UConn game, we were on our last leg, and they were a little bit better than us. And a couple of our early runs here, we were good, and we were awesome to coach, and we were a blast to be around. But we were ascending. We weren't quite at the point we are now. But sometimes those things become in the moment you realize how special those runs are, and then later on it becomes, well, those were just a couple more that were close. Right. And so I don't think we've ever lost too much perspective on that. I think in the last couple of years, when you get to the finals, when last year, those, we knew how good we were and how much of a chance we had. And it was good to get over that. I guess over that hump is what we say. But yeah, those Butler teams are just as special to me finishing second as this team is finishing first.
wow. Okay. So basically you're telling me that the UConn final was like the 17 Eastern Conference finals,
Yeah.
and the Duke final was like the 18 finals.
I don't know. We should, man. I'm not saying they all don't hurt. I'm just saying as I kind of look and take a long view of it all, I think you have the perspective that, hey, you gave yourself a chance, but those teams played their hearts out to get to where they were, and you can't fault them for that.
So we're talking a lot of coaching here, and I remember when the transition from Ainge to you happened. You're going, okay, like this guy's been incredible as a coach, but is it that he needs a different approach to life, and he's just going to be in charge of everything? And how it just leads into the doubts, but like, he's a great basketball mind, and maybe people on the outside are wrong for going, well, he can only do this and he can't do that other thing. What was that transition like for you?
Well, I've been asked about it a lot recently. I think number one, it's so special to be a part of this organization, whether you are the head coach, whether you are in travel and equipment, whether you are sports performance or playing or analytics or whatever. It's just a special place to be. And I've never taken that for granted. I think coming off of the bubble and then coming off of that next year where we weren't, we didn't have fans, and we started 2 months after we got back from the bubble. And you could kind of see we were all running on fumes. My son was a freshman in high school, and we weren't even allowed to go to games in Massachusetts because of the COVID rules. So I watched all of his games on streaming, and just being away from them from July 1st to October, and then going right back into another season, knowing he was a freshman, my daughter was a sixth grader. Part of this for me was, man, their time is flying. And, I wanted to try to make sure I was as big a part of that as possible. And as much as you try to do that in coaching or playing, that travel schedule during the season's real, right? And it is hard to find the right amount of time to be dad. That was a part of it. I thought our team, I thought I as a coach, whether it was that timing, whether it was just I had been in one place for 8 years as a coach, I thought I wasn't, I was burned out a little bit. And then at the same time, I felt like I really knew the team, and I really loved the people I work with, both players and people in the building. And so when we started talking about a replacement for Danny, when he decided to retire, Wick and Danny and Pags, they all went through a few names and probably called a few people. I don't know. And then ultimately came back and said, hey, what about, I had mentioned, if this doesn't go, this might be something I want to do down the road. Danny had talked to me about it. And then they came back and said, that's not a bad idea, and let's pursue that a little bit more. And we did. And here we are. And I think the benefit for me, Ryan, is I didn't lose anybody in the front office. So this front office is very smart. They've been through a lot. They were, taught by who I think's the best in Danny. And they helped me get up to speed on the things that I had to learn. And what I tried to do was bring my strength to the table. And that is just thinking about how teams function and operate. And some of the challenges that a coach faces, when constructing a team. And so hopefully, as we all bring our strengths together, we can put a team together that is functional and gives ourselves a chance.
Because of the coaching background, but now having a different task here, being in charge of the roster, like how do you look at rosters now? How is there a difference between when you were just trying to get wins every night?
No, I very much go back to my time at Butler, because at Butler, our dream was always to get to we had been to a couple Sweet 16s, and it was always to get to the Final Four, right? And so, and ultimately win it. And I think the way that we figured to do it was we needed 4 players that if they transferred in that day and age, which now it's who the hell knows, but in that day and age, that everybody in the country would want them. And then surround those 4 with the best role players you could find. And when you're coaching in Indianapolis, in the state of Indiana, in the Midwest, with all the great high school coaching and all the great kids, it's easy to find those other 10 role players. Those guys are at every turn, all the shooting and all the, they grew up with the game. They've been doing 6 a.m. workouts their whole life. Like, that's easy. Finding the 4 game changers is hard. Here, you need more than 4. But it's the same concept, right? Like, surround your best players that everybody in the world would want on their team with guys that are perfect complements, and guys, and a lot of times for me, that's defensive versatility and shooting. Those are hard to find. You find guys that can do both of those things. There's not many teams that are going to have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those guys.
So if I'm listening to you correctly, then I imagine there's a moment where you go to the staff and go, Drew Holiday's available.
Whoa, let's go.
Yeah. That's basically exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I think the whole league knew that if Portland was to make a deal with Dame, that, they would have to take back some significant salary. And so you can start to do the math on what that might look like, and to be honest, I'd never thought it was going to be Drew, but when Drew became available, that was the kind of guy that obviously is a winning player on every team, and even beyond that, just an amazing. And I know people say this, just an amazing person. To me, my biggest fear with Drew in getting him was the same thing I worried about with Derek. They're such conscientious, unbelievable teammates who are about all the right things that it takes transition for people like that to feel comfortable in their environment, because they're thinking about everyone else. They're thinking about the family moving, the relationships they've left behind, all the important stuff that matters, all the stuff that makes them great is what they're thinking about. And it makes the transition hard. And so we knew that it was going to be like a shock to him. But man, he just came in and he was amazing, and just amazing as a teammate, amazing as a player, and truly played his best in the playoffs, as he kind of navigated and figured out how our team worked, how it all functioned together, how he could best find his footing, and how Joe wanted to do things. And he did a great job.
When I look through, once you take over, I would, it's a bit of a guess. So you finally get to be the GM, right? You're the president of basketball operations. You're in charge of all this stuff. And it's like, okay, we're scouting and we're doing all these things. Sometimes I wonder if your scouting staff is like, are we serious? We traded the pick again. But it was bold, and it's very easy for everybody after the fact to be like, oh, well, everybody knew Derek White was going to be terrific. I don't remember people understanding how special Derek White was, because I think you had to be paying attention to how he fit into all the different things that you're talking about, but flipping for Brogdon and then that becoming Drew. the Derek White deal, like improving just exactly what you're talking about, that 3-5, that 3-6, and then Porzingis and having some move some pieces out. Was there ever a trade where you had a harder time at least getting there, where I'm like, I kind of want to do this? Was there one that stood out for you that you felt like you had more of an internal challenge?
Well, I think when you look at it, we've traded number 16 in the 2021 draft. I think we traded, or maybe a 2020 draft. We traded number 25 in the draft. We traded now the number 14 pick, the Golden State pick that in the Drew draft. So the picks haven't been like, the ones you lose sleep over are the 28 swap and the 29 pick, because those are so far down the road and who knows. But I think what gives you the chance to do that is having a foundation of Jaylen and Jayson, who are 26 and 27 years old. And you have more, you feel like that's, more calculated, and more about what you might look like down the road than you would if they were 35 and 36 years old, right? But I do think they were all really hard, because you have to call or talk to people that you are upheaving their lives, right? So I can't tell you how hard it is. The pit in your stomach. You know that Kristaps Porzingis is excellent, but you're losing Marcus Smart. Drew is excellent, but you're losing Malcolm and Rob. And that's hard on them. And like, they played a huge role in us being here, and nobody thinks otherwise. And so I think that's the hard part for me. Trading, like trading the 25th pick last year for the 38th pick to get a few extra seconds. Who knows if that's a good move or not? But it felt like the right move to give ourselves a good player, and we got a good player in Jordan Walsh, and then also a chance to get some extra assets that we hopefully can use in trades to win at the margins when we have a chance to win. So that's, we'll make all those decisions independently, but trading people is a lot harder for me than trading picks.
And you're right, to your point about where those picks are. And I remember years ago when it was either getting the information, and I remember going to a Waltham workout, and Zarin shows me the chart that he's like, Ainge wanted you to see this chart about draft picks. And I was like, okay. And it's just this massive drop off of predictable production.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other times where, and the audience knows this because I brought it up far too often, but just Ainge going, you guys in the media, this cap space obsession that you have, like it's stupid. And he was nice enough to spend that time with me when I was there. And then when I look and think, I'm like, okay, so clearly Brad had spent hours and hours, countless hours, talking to Danny about roster construction and his side of the job and how that goes together. I just feel like you deserve a lot of credit for being bold from the jump. And I don't know if people going in the direction you have career-wise, it's really easy to say this after the fact. I can just see a lot of people being like, I don't really want to do too much because I'm opening myself up to criticism and people waiting for it. Just wondering how much Ainge influenced the very beginning of what you were doing.
Well, first of all, we wouldn't be able to do it if Danny didn't keep all of our, everything stocked, right? Like, and if Danny doesn't do the trade and get Jaylen and Jayson, we're not in the position we're in. Like, and so he set us up in every which way. And I don't look at it as bold at all. Like, to be honest, Ryan, when I was really, I don't know if it was definitely lucky for me, but I look back at it, I probably wasn't a very good coach when I was named a head coach at 30 years old, but having been in this now and coaching in your hometown, and people ask me all the time, like, how much pressure was it to coach the Celtics? I felt it just as much in my hometown at a small school in the Horizon League. It's just part of it. And, but having been under that, lens where you're getting praise that you don't deserve and criticism you probably don't deserve for years and years and years, just makes it like, let's just build the best team we can. I don't really care what anybody says about it. Is it a good deal, bad deal? Is it helpful to us? Is it helpful to them? Like, I don't think we've done one deal that I didn't think was really good reasonable and smart by the other team. Like, and that's because we're dealing with other front offices and people that are also, they've got all the charts you saw and they've got all these other pieces of information and they're going in their own paths, but they're making those decisions that are calculated and smart. And so we were lucky that the pieces all fit together. And that happened because, we have a super unselfish team. That's the part that was so fun for me this year, was just how much of a true team we were.
I want to talk about Tatum and Jaylen here, because I know, and my world's obsessed with it. I'm guilty of it too. It's like, okay, so Tatum is this, and then he wins, and now he's this. And you said at the very beginning, it's like, I don't really think any differently of these two guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
But watching the playoffs and going, we know what happened to the opposition in the East with injuries, but specific to how Tatum was playing, I was like, okay, he's the defensive focus. He's got the toughest assignment every time. I think a player, even at his age, with his profile, knowing what's at stake here, all right, I've got to put up these kinds of numbers. Even though the shooting clearly could have been better for somebody like Tatum, I just felt like you have somebody in the finals playing basically point guard on offense and playing center on defense. What does not just his talent, but his understanding and probably the scar tissue of all the other stuff, what does that allow the rest of the team to do when he takes on that kind of role?
Well, and everybody focused on the finals, but he guarded Mobley most of this Cleveland series so we could switch. He guarded Miles Turner most of the Indiana series so we could switch. He guarded, and that's not easy. But part of that is, yes, he's got good size. Yes, he's gotten stronger, but he's also super smart and he's a great communicator. And so, you always talk about your bigs, traditional bigs, being people that can kind of direct and quarterback the whole defense because they can see everything and they've got to call out coverages. Well, Tatum's capable of all that. I'll never forget the first one of the first preseason games we were playing when he was a rookie. We were playing Charlotte, and they ran just a traditional side pick and roll called wedge that everybody in the league was running at the time because Tony Parker just destroyed everybody on it. So everybody copied it and put it in their playbook, and he got scored on the first time. And the second time, without me saying anything, he made the adjustment that we would have made in his mind. That's the stuff that people don't see, right? And, when you talk about it, and it's funny you say that. I read an article yesterday that talked about how rare the era was that Jaylen and Jayson are in because they've won a championship and what they've accomplished. It was rare a week ago. It was rare 2 weeks ago. It was rare 3 weeks ago. Like, Jayson's had 50 in a game 7 against the Sixers when they were healthy, right? He had 46 on the road in Milwaukee in a game 6. When he was 19 years old, we were running every play for him in a game 3 on the road in Philly against a team that had won like 17 of 18 to finish the regular season. And he delivered us to a 3-point lead. Like, it's just because of the world we're in that I think that those guys are going to have to navigate the scrutiny. And like I say this all the time about like LeBron, those guys, they get the amount of scrutiny that they get. Just watch them and enjoy them. Like, they're so unique and so special. And it's easier for me to say that because I'm here and I guess because we won. But for the 5 people that are harsh on those guys, I think they turned the corner on Causeway the other day and probably forgot about that pretty quickly.
Jaylen's development is, I think, one of the most impressive single player development things that I've ever seen, because it's like, oh wow, it's a little bit better than I thought. Like, okay, well, I mean, how much better is he going to get? And every single time, I think I've had a limitation for him, he has gone through that. What has it been like seeing it firsthand?
Yeah, I think he is as good as I've ever been around at truly adopting like a mindset of I'm always going to try to improve, and that was from the get-go, from the first draft interview with him to the first draft workout to getting, having a rookie year where he only played 17 or 18 minutes a game as the 3rd pick, while other of the high picks were getting tons of stats and minutes and everything else. But we were a good team. And he just keeps getting better. No matter what you no matter what you throw at him, he's a worker. If he has, an adverse experience, he's going to get up off the mat and work. If he has a great experience, he's going to get right back at it and work. He takes everything as a challenge. And he's very prideful. And he is both those guys are elite workers. And that's a big reason why they're where they are. But, I thought we were going to be in a pretty good place when I walked up to Jaylen at breakfast a couple weeks before or a couple days before the finals. And he told me big 2 weeks. I was like, all right, we're good. Like, as a coach, you never feel good, but I was like, this dude's ready. Like he's coming. And he's had an amazing career. So I don't want to overstate the last couple weeks.
So I didn't know Joe Mazzulla. Like, I had no interaction with him. I knew of him certainly at West Virginia, and I'd heard good things about him. But I always kind of joke, like, I'm glad he was with Boston ahead of time, because if you didn't have anyone with any relationship with him, I don't know how that first interview would go. But the other thing, when he gets named to become head coach in the aftermath of this dramatic run of change, whether it was media or friends or whatever, it's just like, wait, this guy, they're just going to give him this team, and it's like ready to win. And he's younger, and all the doubt that comes with that you had to face as well. And I'm thinking, like, okay, I've known the ownership group for like 2 decades. I would say top to bottom, like, whenever I've been around anyone with the Celtics, I've never been like, how does that guy have that job? Like, I'm like, there's no way that they would just go, yeah, just let Joe Mazzulla do it, because we don't know what we're doing. So I felt like there was some equity from the organization for those of us on the outside to trust it. But what was it about him that you knew that the rest of the other people, that the people in the hiring process understood about Mazzulla, that maybe people without access to him did not know?
I just think he has all the qualities of a really good basketball coach. He's smart. He knows the game on both ends of the floor. He can teach it very succinctly. He can go out on the court and simplify an offensive or defensive game plan and do it in a way that is exceptionally well communicated. He is a great leader that thinks about things that matter. He talks about things that matter all the time. He has a set of action principles that he coaches to and that he believes helps teams be the very best that they can be. And, and I know he does the work. Like, there's a diligence there that is real. And it's his motor is, I think I had that, when I was 35, but I'm not sure I would have had that plus wrestling like alligators and doing whatever the hell else he does. Right. But like, he's a special guy. And, last year he did a great job. We won 57 games, and we did so with, guys missing some time and trying to navigate an unbelievably tough transition to start of the year. And so we went into the playoffs as a staff and even with the ownership group and said, listen, if we don't, if this doesn't go well, right, this is going to be an easy narrative. So let's not buy into that. This guy's special. He didn't even get a summer to prepare for this. And I thought he did a good job in year one. And I thought he prepared well and did another really good job in year two. The guy's just a good basketball coach. And beyond that, he's a guy that really cares about our guys, and he can lead a group. It's pretty special.
Okay. Last thing. I remember, one of the early lessons that I was taught was that even when you win, you have to come back and maybe be a little different, just to get people to not feel stale, which can be fair or not. That it'll be used against you if you weren't able to repeat, which is, to think of like, hey, you guys better repeat. It's just an easy thing to do. But roster wise, it's pretty much set. But how motivated are you to just, I don't know if it's greed, I don't know if it's just general concern that comes with the position that you have of feeling like there has to be some little tweak just from an energy standpoint?
Well, maybe we'll make a draft pick and that person can be a tweak. I don't know. I think that you have an opportunity to tweak and change your roster all the way up until February 10th or whatever it is. And so you don't always have to do those things in June. You don't always have to do those things in July. You have time to evaluate your team, evaluate your roster. We're going to be different right out of the gate next year simply because, we've got guys that, like Kristaps after his surgery, we don't know exactly when he'll be back, but he'll probably miss at least the very start of the season. And so that'll be a great opportunity for us to do things different and have to find different solutions and those types of things that come with it. And then we'll just evaluate our team like we always do. I think you're right, Ryan, but I also think that part of the reason why that is the case, that you want to tweak, that you want to do things different, is because the greatest obstacle will become human nature, right? And we know that with all the praise that we've gotten in the last week or two, the next couple of weeks or whatever, however long that lasts, it's all going to turn into some like real eyes on us and some real scrutiny. And we just kind of know that this cycle is coming. So how can we be all of the great character things that we were this year, bouncing back off the mat with a new team, and double down on that as a character trick, double down on that idea that human nature's in the way, the other 29 opponents are in the way, and we've got to be even better. When we develop, when we work out in the summer, we've got to know that's coming. When we compete for an Olympic team and we put our best foot forward with that, we got to know that's coming. And when we get to Abu Dhabi to play Denver in the preseason game, we got to know that's coming. And, I'm glad we're playing Denver. Like, we got an unbelievable respect for them, and to play a couple preseason games in Abu Dhabi, I think that'll be super fun. We'll be right back at it in 3 months or whatever, and get a chance to, like, right out of the gate, be prepared. We're going to be the first game of the NBA last year, like the team that won it always is. And we're probably going to have one of the studs out east. Right. And so, we're not going to have time to think about how great we are. We're not going to have time to worry about, the small roster tweaks that everybody wants to give us a little jolt. We're going to have to bring it. And that's the fun part about it. And this team has done that all the way through. I've heard their toughness question. I've heard all that, but listen, you don't get to where these guys have taken us before this year without having some grit and some toughness to you.
Well, I know that as you've expressed with us here, like still thinking about those Butler moments and thinking about some of the other playoff stuff with the Celtics and just how driven you are. And I mean, there's probably Celtics fans listening to the end of this right now, just getting pumped up as you're talking about the start of next season. But a life in basketball, it's a dream job, but it's also almost like this task, this honor that you are in charge of for millions of fans in that part of the country. And I think everybody knew leading up to this and listening to you now that that's something you take incredibly seriously as a massive responsibility. So thanks for the time and congrats, Brad.
No, I appreciate it. And you could not be more true. I mean, you turn again, you get in that parade and you turn the corner on the causeway and you see all those people. And if you didn't know it before, you know it now. Like better not screw up the draft. Right. That's what I was thinking as we turned that corner. There's a lot of people wearing a lot of Celtics gear and they're moving on to next year pretty soon. And we should too.
This class, if you whiff on 30, I don't know. I'm not gonna get mad at you about it.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Brad.